While you're under contract, at that point, Ramez would be the lender, would be the one that you're really having a lot of communication with. And Ramez, you want to talk about this because this comes up quite a bit.
Sure. So one of the things that we want to do when we have our initial conversation, before your Vix ever put you in her car and drove you around and started showing you units, is to really kind of get your financial house in order, right? Like I said, we'll have conversations about, what your goals are and all those things. But once you're under contract, then it's kind of go time. If we've done a good job up front and you've provided us with all your documentation, we've already presented you with estimates and things like that. And at that point in time, we just sort of go to what we want to do is we call it locking in the rate, meaning we're securing this rate for you between now and the time you get to closing. And then at that point in time, we will send you the official loan application that you'll docu-sign. Once you've docu-signed it, and if there's any updated documentation that we need from you, we'll ask you from you at that point. What we'll do from there is submit the loan to our processing team, which looks at it typically within a few hours to a day. And then we try to get that loan into underwriting as quickly as possible. I'll give you an example. I have a client that's been looking for some homes here recently. She went under contract for her house last night. We sent her all the documentation last night. She docu-signed it this morning. Our processor got the loan into underwriting the same day, and at about 5:30 this evening, I got an email saying that her loan was approved.
Hmm.
So it can happen that quickly if you're dealing with the right, people, right? If you're working with online kind of lenders and things like that, where people are kind of working out of sort of like a bullpen, just a big bullpen area and like a call center, you're not going to get that same sort of level of responsiveness. And that's really important because many times these transactions happen in a very short window of time.
That's true.
Part of making a competitive offer many times is being able to get to closing sooner. So
Mhm.
if we prepared you up front and you're communicative with your lender, the process can go very smoothly. It can also go sideways if you're not dealing with the right folks.
Yeah.
And then from there, like I said, the loan gets approved. And then we come back to you with, maybe we need a pay stub or an explanation of something, but it's normally something pretty minimal.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on underwriting? Because somebody who has never been through this process might not
Sure.
really understand what that means.
Okay. So typically, when we are, what we'll ask you for in a transaction is information to support your income, right? Pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements, that sort of thing. Bank statements, right? Bank statements are where is your money coming from? We look at the statements. Are there any kind of irregular deposits? Are you selling stock? There's different things that you need for that. We already talked about the credit report, and all that information is presented to an underwriter. And this is an individual person, right? Now, typically, before we submit it to underwriting, we run your loan through an automated underwriting system that is kind of the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac models on, what they will approve and risk levels. And an underwriter just kind of comes in behind that approval and they just confirm that all the documentation that you've provided us is accurate, and they come in and they double check it. So if we've done a really good job, we make an underwriter's job very easy. If we leave a lot of questions for the underwriter and they don't understand what we have going on, then it can be more difficult. But the process can be a very easy one if you're prepared and you sort of follow the instructions of the lender. And like I said, we try to ask for everything up front so we don't have to ask you every other day for something new. And then once that appraisal comes in, which is the valuation of the home, that's part of the underwriting model, right? Is this house worth what we think it is? And then the real estate attorney will. Do you want to talk about that piece, Vic? Or
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. Probably the best way to look at this is that you're assembling your team, and I would be the first person on your team or your buyer agent, whoever you end up working with, and then your lender is on the team, and the title company and or lawyer is going to be the third part of this team. These people have to all work together, communicate really well. And so that title attorney is the person who is going to be making sure that you can actually purchase this property, making sure that the deed that you're going to have is free and clear of any liens, They're reviewing the history of the property. Many cases, they go back 60 years to see what activity has been happening with the property. They order a boundary survey and or a location drawing, which a location drawing is if they just show you where the house is on the property. But the boundary survey is the one that, frankly, I would recommend. And that's the one that really shows exactly where your property lines are. If there's ever a dispute, if there's a fence or, and this comes up all the time, or a shed that is partly on your property, at that moment in the transaction, the title attorney would be able to reach out and to that neighbor and say, hey there, your shed's partially on this land, and that would all be worked out in the process. So because of course you are buying a house, but you're buying the land, that it sits on. You want to make sure that nobody is kind of using part of that land. Also, the title attorney is going to be coordinating the settlement. They're the company that holds all the funds. I had mentioned earlier about the earnest money deposit going into an escrow account. That title attorney, title office is going to be holding all that money. They collect all the closing documents. They work with the lender very closely as it gets close to the settlement date. They have to provide a closing disclosure with all the final numbers. And so there's a lot of coordination that goes on pretty much, all throughout the transaction, right up and, until settlement day.